Hi, for my project, I'm working with Nativity Miguel Coalition, which is a network of schools that supports underserved students through education, resources, and data driven calibration to improve outcomes. But the main problem I'm addressing is that while the data exists, it's highly fragmented and the data is separated across multiple Excel files, meaning that information can take a while to pull out. It also has inconsistent formats and naming, no shared identifiers, which makes essentially ER modeling difficult because it makes cross school comparisons difficult with the lack of the primary keys. So this can make reporting very manual and time consuming for Nativity Miguel Coalition. So why this matters is because without clean and accessible data, it's much harder for the school administrators to identify trends, compare performance, and ultimately improve student outcomes. Oh, for our data sources, I'm using NMC provided Excel data sheets that include about 30 schools. So these data sheets contain survey data like demographics and student outcomes, as well as financial reporting data. And many of these Excel files is that they have multiple files and tabs within the data, so managing it can be tricky. So one of the main challenges is that the data is spread across multiple files and tabs with inconsistencies in formatting, misused values, and no standard identifiers like a shared school ID. So a big part of this project is going to be cleaning, um, standardizing, and integrating all this data into one usable data set so that way we can create visualizations for easy access of data to address insights. So this is my initial prototype of the dashboard. This is a mock-up. So the goal of this was to provide an interactive US map that could allow users to explore schools geographically. So I wanted to include filters through our Shiny app that can sort users such as budget, number of students, or region. And below that, I want to include a comparison section so school administrator can easily look at two schools side by side across metrics like attendance, revenue, and outcomes. So the final goal here is to create a layout that is intuitive and allows administrators to quickly explore and compare data. Oh, now looking at this expected visualization, um, so this application is going to have a few key features. First, I want the users to be able to filter by school, either by selecting a single school or multiple schools, which will update all the visuals dynamically, and this is going to allow for direct comparison. Second, an interactive map allows users to click on schools and view location-based insights. Maybe they want to see how schools are performing in the Midwest and compare their profit margins between each school, or this can be done even on the East Coast as well. So it provides a geographic visual of all these schools and where they're placed at. Third, I want to include a comparison table that can show side-by-side metrics like attendance, budget, revenue, and outcomes. I also want these comparison tables to be to show more than just budget, revenue, outcomes. Maybe, for instance, we include a a tab that addresses high school completion, postgraduate outcomes too, as well. Lastly, with this visualization, I want to include key KPI summaries. So, for instance, something that's visually stands out within the school. So, for instance, maybe the school has a 92% high school completion rate for those students that attend that specific school that we are looking at. So overall, just to provide a summary of all the features, The dashboard includes interactive maps. It's going to have dynamic filters to identify specific schools for these administrators, KPI summaries, and I wanted to be able to provide real-time updates as the schools are getting and new data. So it's going to be a useful tool for these school administrators to easily look up data between schools to provide insights on how they can decide and make decisions. So in terms of how it's built, the application is going to use R Shiny as the core framework with possibly HTML and CSS for layout and design. I'll also use libraries like Leaflet for maps, Plotly for charts, and DT for interactive tables. So that's how we're going to design this overall, or how I'm expecting to design this overall visualization. So I designed this from a perspective of a school administrator, this whole visualization, who wants to quickly explore student outcomes and school performance. So one question I might have is where postgraduate outcomes should be displayed so they're easy to find and compare. So from a user perspective, administrators need to be able to quickly compare outcomes, financial data, and identify schools that may need additional support. One of the main challenges I anticipate is data inconsistency and missing values within the data, which could limit the accurate comparisons and insight. However, this overall goal is to turn data into something that supports clear, actionable decisions rather than just visualizations.